If adding qubits is how quantum computers get more capable, why can't we just keep adding them like we add transistors on a normal chip? Because the bottleneck isn't the qubit. It's everything supporting the qubit, keeping it cold, controlling it, reading it out, and doing that at scale without melting the system. And here's the kicker. The moment you do try to scale, those support systems can explode faster than the qubit count. And if you've seen the hot takes, quantum is magic, or it'll break encryption tomorrow, park that for a second. The real story today is what's holding quantum back right now. By the end, you'll understand the real bottleneck and why a weird 1980s superconducting chip idea might be the unglamorous fix. This isn't just a story about new technology, it's what happens when the future collides with a problem we thought we'd already solved, and the only hope comes from a ghost in the machine. If you like rigorous, no-hype science explainers, hit like and subscribe to SciByte Insights. Complex science, simple explanations. Let's start with a clean definition of the quantum dream. These aren't just faster computers, they operate on a fundamentally different set of rules. A classical computer bit is a light switch. It's either on or off, a 0 or a 1. Simple. A quantum bit, or qubit, is more like a dimmer switch. Thanks to superposition, it can be a 0, a 1, or a mix of both at the same time, like the dimmer being set to 50% brightness. And through entanglement, two of these dimmer switches can be instantly linked no matter how far apart they are. This ability to explore a vast landscape of possibilities simultaneously is where a quantum computer's immense power comes from. But there's a catch, and it's a non-negotiable one: decoherence. To maintain these fragile quantum states, qubits need to be almost perfectly isolated. Imagine trying to build an elaborate, delicate house of cards. Any stray vibration, breeze, or change in temperature, any noise from the outside world, will cause the whole thing to collapse. That's decoherence. The only way we know how to build a silent, stable room for this house of cards is through extreme cold. The core of these machines is a device called a dilution refrigerator, a multi-layered golden chandelier that cools a quantum chip to about 10 or 20 millikelvin, a temperature colder than outer space. Inside this frigid chamber, circuits behave quantum mechanically, and we can control them by sending them precise microwave pulses. For a long time, the main challenge was building better qubits, making the cards less flimsy. And the progress has been remarkable. We have processors with hundreds of qubits, but as we've gotten better at building the house of cards, we've discovered a new, much larger problem. The very act of trying to control the cards is threatening to knock them over. The problem isn't the quantum chip. It's the classical world that has to connect to it. Every single qubit needs to be controlled. This requires a physical connection, a wire, and not just one. Each qubit requires multiple lines for control and readout. A conservative estimate is 3 to 5 individual cables per qubit. So for a 100-qubit processor, you're running up to 500 cables. Now imagine a 1,000-qubit machine. Suddenly, you need to cram thousands of individual cables into that delicate, freezing environment. This is what the industry calls the wiring crisis. This isn't just a clutter problem, it's a crisis of physics for a few key reasons. 1. Each of those wires acts like a metal straw, channeling heat from the warm room temperature world directly into the frozen heart of the machine. It's like trying to keep an ice cube from melting while touching it with thousands of hot needles. The refrigerator's cooling power is quickly overwhelmed. 2. The cables act as antennas, funneling in electrical noise. It's like trying to have a quiet conversation in a library while thousands of radios blaring static through open windows. This noise is poison to quantum coherence. And 3, there's the brute force problem of space. It's like trying to run the entire plumbing system of an office building through a single coffee cup. There is a physical limit to how many cables you can thread through the cryostat. This wiring crisis was already a major headache. But when you factor in the reality of quantum errors, it becomes an existential threat. The truth is, the qubits we have today are noisy. They're like clumsy acrobats. They stumble. The solution, borrowed from classical computing, is error correction. But quantum error correction is a completely different beast. In a classical computer, you can just copy a bit to check for errors. In the quantum world, that's impossible. The no-cloning theorem means the very act of observing a qubit destroys its special state. It's like having a message written in invisible ink that vanishes the moment you shine a light on it to read it. Instead, you have to use complex schemes where you use a large number of physical qubits, the clumsy acrobats, to form a single, more robust logical qubit, a perfectly coordinated acrobat troupe. The overhead is staggering. The common estimate is that you might need around 1,000 physical qubits to create just one stable logical qubit. So, a useful computer with 1,000 logical qubits would need about 1 million physical qubits. Now let's revisit our wiring crisis. 1 million qubits, each needing several control lines, means millions of individual cables. It is, quite simply, an engineering absurdity. But the nightmare gets worse. Error correction isn't a one-time fix. It's a constant high-speed game of whack-a-mole. An error pops up, and the classical control system must spot it and send a corrective pulse back, all within a few microseconds, before the quantum state disappears. This creates a brutal feedback loop. You have 1 million qubits creating an avalanche of data that has to travel out of the cryostat, get processed, and have corrective signals sent back in, all faster than the blink of an eye. The latency, the time it takes for a signal to travel up and down those cables, becomes a fundamental roadblock. You can't win the game if your instructions arrive too late. So, we're stuck. Trapped between the awesome potential of a 1 million qubit processor and the impossible physics of its control system. But what if the solution was to shrink the entire control system down and put it right inside the ice castle itself? And what if the technology to do that has been sitting on a shelf for 40 years? If you're finding this breakdown fascinating, make sure you're subscribed. We're about to get to the critical turn in this story. To find the solution, we have to go back to the 1980s. At that time, another race was underway to build the fastest possible classical supercomputer. A major effort was betting on a radical technology, superconducting electronics. The idea was to build digital logic not with silicon transistors, but with ultra-fast, hyper-efficient Josephson junctions. This logic family was called Rapid Single Flux Quantum, or RSFQ. In RSFQ logic, information isn't represented by a constant voltage, like shouting a message across a room. Instead, it's represented by tiny quantized pulses of magnetic flux, like sending information using quick, silent puffs of smoke. These smoke signals are incredibly fast and use about 100,000 times less energy than their shouting counterparts. So what happened? Why aren't we all using superconducting laptops? The PC revolution. While RSFQ was being perfected, room temperature silicon got cheap and powerful enough for the mass market. The one giant drawback of RSFQ was that it needed to be cryogenically cooled. For one giant supercomputer, that cost might be justifiable. For a desktop PC, it was a dead end. By the early 1990s, the dream of the superconducting computer was largely abandoned. RSFQ became a fascinating footnote, a brilliant solution to a problem that simply vanished. Now let's fast forward 40 years. We find ourselves staring at that golden chandelier, facing a wiring problem that seems impossible. And suddenly, that abandoned idea doesn't look so obsolete. In fact, it looks like the only path forward. The very thing that killed RSFQ, its need for a cryogenic environment, is now its greatest asset. We already have the refrigerator for the qubits. So what if we put a tiny classical brain made of superconducting logic inside the cryostat, right next to the quantum processor? This is the revolutionary idea now being pursued. Instead of having the control system shouting instructions from a warm room far away, you place a tiny librarian inside the ultra-cold silent library with the qubits. This librarian can whisper instructions directly. The benefits are transformative. First, the wiring crisis evaporates. Instead of millions of heat-leaking analog cables, you have a few digital lines running from the outside world to the librarian inside. The heat load on the refrigerator plummets. Second, the latency problem for error correction is solved. With the classical brain sitting centimeters from the quantum heart, that game of whack-a-mole becomes winnable. The feedback loop shrinks from microseconds to nanoseconds. And finally, the noise problem is dramatically reduced. The thousands of radio blaring windows are sealed shut, replaced by short, clean, whispered connections on a chip. It's an integrated system. This revival is not a magic bullet. It comes with its own monumental challenges. One of the biggest is interference, or crosstalk. Even the librarian's whisper creates a tiny stir in the air. We have to ensure these classical chips don't generate tiny magnetic fields that disturb the very qubits they're trying to help, that the whisper doesn't knock over the house of cards. Furthermore, building these complex systems to work perfectly in one of the most extreme environments on Earth is an immense hurdle. This is the hard engineering that defines the current era. The focus is shifting from just counting qubits to designing the entire integrated system. The grand challenge of quantum computing has turned out to be a story in two parts. The first was about mastering the quantum world. The second, and arguably harder part, is a classical engineering problem. The dream of the quantum age was on a collision course with a wall of copper wiring and waste heat. The solution, it turns out, wasn't some brand new discovery. It was an echo from the past. A beautiful idea born 40 years too early, waiting for the world to build a problem that only it could solve. The future of computing's most advanced frontier may depend entirely on our ability to resurrect one of its ghosts. The race isn't just about building the most powerful quantum processor, it's about building the smartest refrigerator. What other forgotten technologies do you think could hold the key to solving our biggest modern challenges? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, never stop asking why.